Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and honestly welcome to the press conference following the Eastern Partnership Summit in Riga, or in short, the Riga Summit. In a moment, the speakers will deliver their introductory remarks, and after that, they are ready to take your questions. We have interpretation into 4 languages: English, French, Latvian, and Russian in your mobile devices. The summit declaration, as adopted by the leaders, will be available shortly, both in paper version here at the summit venue and, of course, also at the summit website. Without further ado, I first invite the host of the Riga Summit, Prime Minister Straujuma of Latvia, to take the floor. Please, Madam.
Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly the Riga Summit is to be seen as a particularly significant event in the overall landscape of events both in Latvia and in Europe. We hosted in the Riga Summit almost all leaders of the EU and Eastern Partnership countries. I believe that it gave another impetus for further enhanced and strategically significant relations of the EU with Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine. I am confident that the outcomes of today's discussions will contribute to outline the development of the Eastern Partnership policy for the coming years, promoting stability, security, prosperity and democracy in the Eastern Partnership region. The Riga Summit declaration that we adopted just a moment ago reconfirms this bridge of strategically important relations is being built with great care on the part of both the EU and the Eastern partners, and based on deep understanding of the situation and the necessity to progress, forging these relations even stronger with every step of cooperation. I am pleased that the declaration underlines the EU's support to territorial integrity, independence and sovereignty of all the Eastern Partnership countries. It is very important that in parallel to the framework of political relations, we also promote economic, trade and people-to-people relations. We are heading for even greater mobility and support for reforms. There is a successfully operating visa-free regime in place already with Moldova. Today, I would like to commend also Georgia and Ukraine that are actively working to meet all the conditions in order to receive a positive opinion from the European Commission that would be followed by the decision about a visa-free regime. The capital of Latvia, Riga, hosts not only the heads of state or government of the EU member states, but also the representatives of NGOs, civil society, mass media and businesses of the Eastern Partnership countries. We had days rich in discussions and talks at different levels, and the people-to-people contacts constitute a significant investment in the future and prosperity of the EU and the Eastern Partnership nations. I believe that the Riga Summit is an opportunity, a new opportunity for all of us together to create conditions for a better life for our people, and I am confident that we will make full use of this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And I will turn to Donald Tusk, President of the European Council and Chairman of the Riga Summit.
Thank you, Preben. Good afternoon. Before anything else, let me first express my sincere gratitude to honestly host. To you, Prime Minister, dear Laindota, and to the Latvian presidency for all the work undertaken in preparing the summit. I am glad to see such a high level of participation from all, It sends a very strong message about our commitment to the Eastern Partnership. This message of our continued, consistent and strong commitment to the Eastern Partnership and each of our partner countries is the main message of this summit. And it is a necessary message in light of the last year's turmoil, aggression, intimidation and even war in this part of Europe. The Eastern Partnership is our framework of engagement that offers closer political association and economic cooperation with the European Union. It is based on mutual interest and commitments as well as the free will, sovereignty and independence of all parties. Today, we all reaffirmed our common interest to continue developing strengthened, closer, differentiated relations with each of our partners to help them become more resilient in the face of increasing challenges to stability and security in the region and to make sovereign choices. Strengthened and more transparent institutions, free from corruption, will make our partners stronger and help us maintain the Eastern Partnership relevant for all. This is the second main message of the summit. During the summit, we took stock of achievements we have witnessed since Vilnius and set out a positive agenda for the future. Since the Vilnius summit, we have signed association agreements and deep and comprehensive free trade areas with Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine. This has brought our cooperation to a new level. The AA DCFTAs are already provisionally applied, except for the DCFTA part for Ukraine, which will enter into force as of the 1st of January 2016. We reviewed the early stages of the implementation of AA DCFTAs and demonstrated our strong commitment to deepen our cooperation. We reiterated our support to others who are seeking more tailor-made relations. We have reached an understanding with Armenia on the scope of our future relationship. We should also be able to take some steps forward in deepening our critical engagement with Belarus. And we have received Azerbaijan's suggestions regarding the renewal of the contractual basis for its relations with the EU. Let me stress that the Eastern Partnership is more than just the sum of our bilateral relations. Our multilateral framework will continue to be critical to keeping our partnership together. Over the past 6 years, the multilateral dimension of the Eastern Partnership has established a dense network of contacts, for example, through informal partnership dialogues. We have taken the Eastern Partnership beyond governments to parliaments, local authorities, civil society and businesses. And today we confirmed our intention to make energy and transport cooperation distinct priorities for the coming years. Overall, we agreed to advance our cooperation in those areas which bring tangible benefits to our partners' societies and economies, in particular in state building, mobility and people-to-people contacts, market opportunities and interconnections. With regard to mobility issues, we welcome the positive impact the visa-free regime with Moldova has had on travel and people-to-people contacts, with around 500,000 people having benefited from this opportunity during its first year. Progress is also being made with Armenia and Belarus. With regard to Georgia and Ukraine, which are the closest in line to achieve the objective of visa-free travel, President Juncker and myself are determined to be as ambitious as possible in terms of seeing this process to a successful finalization. But it is, of course, also up to Georgia and Ukraine to set the pace when it comes to fulfilling the necessary steps. We also agreed to continue to improve our communication efforts to better explain the benefits of the partnership to the general public. In addition, I prize the fruitful meetings of side events in the emergence of the Riga Summit, the Business Forum, Civil Society Conference, and Media Conference. To conclude and repeat, the European Union is a partner for the long haul. Our partnership, as well as the Riga Summit itself, are not about dramatic decisions or taking giant steps forward. No, our relationship is built on free will, respect and equality. And our partnership will go forward step by step, just as the European Union has been built, through concrete progress on matters such as trade, energy, transport, mobility and reforms. Our partnership will grow increasingly closer and offer by far the best prospects for Europe as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is now time for your questions. Please state your name and the media you represent before asking your question. And we start with the gentleman in the middle, fourth row.
Hi, Lawrence Norman from the Wall Street Journal. A couple of questions. First of all, we understand that the summit was held up and the statement held up because of concerns by Azerbaijan over the statement. And we understand, Mr. Tusk, that you had to ring the Azeri president to get him to sign off on the statement. Don't those kind of tensions and the arguments over the language on Crimea suggest that the Eastern Partnership is actually an idea whose time has passed, and we'd be better off dealing with those countries, Georgia, Moldova and Ukraine, who want closer ties? And just a quick second follow-up for Mr. Tusk and Mr. Juncker. Are you beginning to fear that Mr. Cameron is set on a course to take Britain out of the European Union?
Azerbaijan and Belarus' position is, for me, something like a practical example of tailoring our cooperation and differentiation. In fact, we predict this problem because so-called tailoring was one of the topic of our summit in Riga. We are fully aware that we need new tools as the EU and as the Eastern Partnership. This was the main topic of my discussion with President Aliyev today after our meeting. And in fact, we discussed not about the declaration. As you know, we have a joint declaration including Azerbaijan and Belarus. The discussion was rather about the new tools and the new approach that reflect differentiation. And for sure, Azerbaijan is determined to continue cooperation, even strengthen our cooperation between EU and Azerbaijan. I have no doubt. It was maybe the most clear message from President Aliyev today. And what Azerbaijan needs is the best relationship with Europe. I have also no doubt. The emotions with our joint declaration, this is something for me very natural, also because of very difficult situation around us. As you know, in fact, since Vilnius summit, everything changed around us, but nothing changed when it comes to our intentions. And this is why I am quite satisfied by the results of our summit, despite the difficulties with this process of drafting our common declaration. But as you know, the most important thing is the final, not the beginning of processes. About David, I think.
Yeah? I didn't understand the question. But anyway, I have been invited by the British PM next Monday at Chequers, and then will take under meditation all the elements which could have been elements of your question.
Thank you. We move forward to the next question. I see a lady there in the first row.
Georgian Public Broadcaster Ketevan Kartava. Madam Prime Minister, you told us during the doorstep yesterday that there's a good news for Georgia. Today now you have just congratulated Georgia and Ukraine reached progress. We want to hear now from your President and from your President the good news for Georgia about visa liberalization. You told us just that you will be as ambitious as possible, and Georgia and Ukraine are the closest to finalize the process. Does it mean that the final political decision has already reached, and is it possible to grant Georgia a visa-free regime from the next year? How do you think? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I said before that Georgia and Ukraine are actively working to comply with the criteria and requirements. And if at the end of the year the European Commission gives its positive opinion, and provided this opinion is positive at the end of the year, then Georgia and Ukraine next year might enjoy visa-free regime. So it takes another evaluation and opinion from the Commission at the end of this year, and then at the beginning of the next year, Georgia will be able to enjoy this visa-free regime. Thank you.
La Géorgie et l'Ukraine ont fait d'immenses progrès.
Georgia and Ukraine have made enormous progress in recent months. Today, I was able to hand over to the Georgian and Ukrainian authorities a list of issues on which Georgia and Ukraine still need to make some progress. The Commission will be publishing its next evaluation around the 15th of December, and then the Council will make the decision. I'm very optimistic about liberalizing the visa regimes for Ukraine and Georgia.
If I can add something regarding the visa-free regime for Georgia and for Ukraine. As you know, this process will need acceptance from all Council and all 28 member states of the EU. And what was, for me, the most promising signal today, that all of them, I mean all prime ministers, presidents, during our discussion, they mentioned how important for them is the process of liberalization, the visa regime. And I think it's also your opinion and yours, Jean-Claude, that the political mood when it comes to this topic was very responsible but very, very optimistic.
Thank you. We take a third question. I see the gentleman in the third row.
Rostislav Kotin, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. I have a question for President Donald Tusk. The summit hasn't got European perspective in the final declaration. Instead, it got acknowledgement of European aspirations and European choice. Should there be some sense of frustrations for Ukrainians? And when will, at last, Ukraine and indeed Georgia and Moldova get this strongly desired European perspective? Thank you.
I'm sure that we have to be very honest and very, very, very frank. The EU delivers its promises, but of course we can't react promising enough for other countries when it comes to all of its expectations, and because I think that you can understand this very delicate difference between our promises and expectations of our partners. For sure, it was a very tough discussion about language, and I know the language is very important in politics, but I think that deeds and facts are much more important than just the language in our declarations. And it means that nothing changed when it comes to our intention, also in this context. And I can just repeat, we stay the course. But nobody promised that Eastern Partnership will be the automatically way to the membership in the European Union. It's a long process. You have friends and enemies, enthusiasts and skeptics in Europe. It's normal. But for sure, especially in this very difficult time, I mean this geopolitical circumstances in our region, fact that we achieved this level of ambition in our declaration, I think we have to appreciate this fact, because it was also a very difficult and demanding process to convince our partners that this level of ambition in our common language, this is maybe the maximum what we can achieve today. But it means that our intentions are the same as 5 years ago.
Thank you. We take a final question, given the time constraints. I see the gentleman there in the middle.
Jānis Ranzants, news agency BNS. A question to Prime Minister Straujuma. Is Latvia satisfied with the summit results, or can we expect any developments in the EU-Russia relationships, considering the reserved attitude of Russia towards the Eastern Partnership? Thank you. The summit declarations are always a compromise, but I am satisfied with the result. The declaration is about cooperation. Cooperation in business, among people, on the infrastructure development. The declaration is not aimed at anyone or against anything. It's all about development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your attendance. That concludes the press conference.